We probably should. I'm gonna go get mine. That's a good idea. Hey, we'll be right back. We probably should. Honestly, probably should.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Amber. Hi, Christy. We sat down. We had to come into a different room today because the Wi-Fi wasn't working good in the other one, and realized that we are sitting a whole lot closer than we normally are. So, hence the black face coverings.
Yep. Yep. We want to set a good example. Yeah. So thanks for being patient with us as we got a little late today. So the year continues
Yes.
to be a year. So why don't you update and
Yeah,
people don't know what's going on?
As I was sitting at home with my family yesterday, and we were celebrating the service of Shane Coop yesterday, and just kind of as a family going through our memories together with Shane and celebrating that time, I got a text from kind of a cousin, I guess you will, of ours. Missy texted and said, Uncle Bill's not doing well, not responsive, and then not long after that, she texted and said he had passed. And so those of you that know Bill Howe, you probably already knew that he was battling COVID up in the hospital. And if you haven't heard, he did go on to be with Jesus last night. Mm-hmm. And that just adds to this long list of people that we are either in relationship with ourselves or are family members of people that we are in relationship with. And so, yeah, it's going through. John and I were talking a little while ago, just going through that same process that we just went through with Shane, and that roller coaster of emotions and that surreal feeling of, is it really happening? And the biggest thing with both of them for me is the joy knowing where they are is so great and so exciting, but then the sadness that is on the flip side of that. And John, you did a great job Sunday morning in talking about that process of grieving. And in our home, we kind of talked a little bit about that and that message that you shared with us on Sunday. And I think it'd be good if we reiterate some of those points that you made today.
I mean, we're all, something that you were talking about a little earlier is we all process these things differently.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. I mean, the word that I prefer, I don't prefer the word balance. I prefer the word tension.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of tension in our thoughts and feelings over situations like this.
Yeah.
We don't know how are we supposed to respond? How are people expecting us to respond? What's an appropriate response? How long am I supposed to live maybe in a certain emotion or a certain mindset? So I mean, what we talked about on Sunday was a few things. I mean, we knew that the Sunday after Shane's passing was going to be a day.
Yeah. We had planned for it. We knew that it wasn't going to be an easy day to go through.
Yeah. So we had actually, at least I have, and as a staff, we have for a little less time. But I had certainly been thinking about this past Sunday's message honestly, for a few months.
Yeah.
Because once we kind of knew that last round of chemo didn't really work.
Yeah.
And the immunotherapy wasn't going to work. Like the family kind of put out some notifications.
Yeah.
So it was time for us really to think about how we were going to do things.
Yep.
And regardless of what happened or didn't happen with the funeral, we knew that the Sunday after was going to be rough.
Yeah.
So I just started thinking, started reading. Usually when I lead a funeral ceremony, especially for a person who's a Christian, for me, like I'm always drawn to this 1 Thessalonians 4 text,
Yeah.
which I mean Dave talked about it on Saturday. Dave Paris talked about it on Saturday at Linda Daggett's funeral. I've heard you talk about it at funerals. Like it's just that's the text that I am like when I think about funeral, especially for a believer. That's where I go to. So as I went to that place thinking about Sunday, like one of the things that I've been doing lately in writing messages is I've started to ask questions of what I'm reading. And for those of you that are going to hear or be here on Sunday or hear Sunday's message, I'm going to kind of walk you through some questions that I have about a text that we're going to discuss on Sunday.
Yeah.
So this week we read 1 Thessalonians 4:13, and now, dear brothers and sisters, we want you to know what will happen to the believers who have died, so you will not grieve like people who have no hope. So we'll just kind of stop right there. So if we're not supposed to grieve like people without hope, my question then is, well, how are we supposed to grieve?
Yeah.
So then what does that look like for me to grieve?
Yeah.
Right? And I think of asking, so here's a not so much of a sidebar because we always talk about the importance of reading the Bible. Here's a Bible study tip. Ask questions.
Yeah.
So like for this, like for me, the question was so obvious. So if I'm not supposed to grieve in a certain, if there's something I'm not supposed to do, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So how do I grieve? So then I went to, I hope it's John 11. For some reason, that's what's on my brain. I didn't write it down. No. Oh, yep, it is John 11. Good.
Yeah.
So then I went to John 11, and we have this story that's laid out for us of Jesus's close friend Lazarus passing away.
Yeah.
And the encounter that Jesus had with Lazarus's sisters, Martha and Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of have, like, in my mind, as I'm reading this text, I'm like, okay, well, what if Jesus is telling us how to mourn?
Mm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm often hesitant to say things like that because in my Bible, and I'm sure in your Bible, and I'm sure in your Bible, if you're looking at your Bible, which I want you to, in John 11 it does not say Jesus tells us how to mourn.
No, it doesn't.
So kind of what we want to do is we want to like maybe read between the lines is a good way to talk about that or
yeah.
See just. Well, how did Jesus deal with these things?
One of the things that I love to do when I'm reading scripture is to try and place myself in the moment.
Yeah.
And to let I was just talking with a college student last week. I'm going to spend some more time with him today, and we're talking about sermon preparation. And one of the things that I've been taught is to use your senses and to include the senses of everybody in the audience if you can.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have been given is this perception that we use our senses to do. And so if I can place myself in the moment and try to experience what the people within that text are experiencing, that gives me fuller understanding.
Yeah.
And I think we see that in this.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I feel like that's something I did several times on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have these, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died.
Yeah.
So that happens twice, and I think both times I said, well, surely you felt that this way sometime this week, haven't you?
Yeah.
Like, surely Miranda and MZ and Milo or Greg Elliott or Dave Robinson or Bobby like,
Yeah,
surely
yeah.
those people in the midst of losing a loved one, at least the thought popped up in the back of their head.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if Jesus had been here, this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Or the later one, when Jesus is walking to the tomb, this man healed a blind man. Couldn't he have kept Lazarus from dying? Well, why didn't, you know what? I'm a Christian. Why didn't Jesus keep my wife Linda from dying?
Yeah.
Why didn't Jesus keep my dad from dying? Why didn't Jesus keep our pastor of creative arts, Shane Coop, from dying? Like, these are real questions for us that we have to wrestle with.
Yeah.
And so kind of going through, I was looking through the story, and I know I've taught on it before. It might have been actually one of the very first messages I feel like I taught on, because I remember talking about spiritual platitudes and telling, like, sometimes as Christians we have this need to, like, tell people what we think they need to hear.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like to make them feel good.
Mhm.
You know, it's okay
Right.
because Shane's going to be resurrected, and that's true.
Yeah.
And we want to cling to that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it sounds really cliche.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it sounds like when we say things like that, we're dodging what's really happening inside of us
Mm-hmm.
and trying to, like, I don't want to deal with those thoughts and feelings, so I'm just going to think about Jesus coming back, which is a good thing.
Right. But I think it bypasses the natural process that he gives us
Yeah.
to go through.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, when Jesus went to this home, that process
Yeah.
was taking place.
Yeah.
They were in the process of grieving Lazarus,
And
and family had gathered.
yeah. And notice Jesus, like, I mean, there's lots of things. We probably could have added more.
Yeah.
Jesus never tells them not to mourn.
Nope.
He doesn't
not at
say,
all.
like, just even his interaction, you know, when he he doesn't walk into Martha and say, "Why are you crying? Mary, or Martha, I'm the resurrection and the life." Why? Like, he doesn't do that.
No.
He comes in, and I would say I'm going to use the word abuse, not because I believe it's abuse, but like, he takes the verbal abuse that Martha is giving him. Like, why weren't you here?
Yeah.
Jesus, why weren't you here?
Yeah. Yeah.
He takes
Where
that,
were you when we needed you?
Yeah, he takes that verbal abuse,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't freak out about it.
Yeah.
He loves her,
Yeah.
tells her, well,
Yeah.
your brother's going to rise, is going to rise again. So
Mm-hmm.
so the things that we talked about, like, how, so then if we're not supposed to grieve a certain way, how are we supposed to grieve? So looking at this text from John 11, we want to be, I think we can grieve well by being honest about our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So the thoughts and feelings that people within our church body are feeling now and are going to continue to feel over the next several weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And for the families, it's going to be longer.
Yeah.
You know, there are
Years.
a lot of realities, things that happen in our lives after a loved one passes that are completely like driving down the road. We're going to see things, we're going to hear things that are going to just all of a sudden unexpectedly shout that my loved one is no longer with me. So when we're honest about that, when we're honest about our feelings, like, we mourn well when we're honest about our feelings.
Yeah.
It's okay to be sad. And
It's good to be sad.
yes, it is. Yeah.
It is a release of
Yeah.
emotion that is necessary, and if we
Yeah.
hold that in, it can actually cause health problems for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a book, and I don't know where my copy is. This is one of those books that just disappeared that I think I loaned to somebody. But it's by a pastor, Mark Schlesky. I think you guys have it. The Something of Your Heart. I don't remember the exact title. The Secret of Your Heart, or something like that.
I can't remember.
Well, one of the things that he talks about in the book is how our emotions are made in God's image too.
Yes.
And I remember I remember when I read that for the first time, I felt just so freed.
Mm-hmm.
Like that my emotions are made in God's image. They're
Yeah.
not something that I should tuck away or hide or be dishonest about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We want to mourn well. I think the second thing that we talked about was we mourn well when we acknowledge the reality of death and the resurrection.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I love like verse 14 in John chapter 11. They're having this the elders, the disciples of Jesus are kind of having this debate. Oh, because Jesus used this language of falling asleep, and Jesus told them plainly, nope, Lazarus is dead. Like, we're going to get there, and he's dead.
Mm.
So, this is like Lazarus, in a way. So, I'm going to say he's not coming back because Jesus knew that something else was going on.
Yeah.
But Jesus is communicating, at least in this, if we were only in that moment, there's a finality. Lazarus is dead.
Yeah.
And he ain't coming back.
Yeah.
Now, Jesus had other plans. We know that because we read the rest of the story. But there's finality.
He's dead like you know dead.
Yes.
To me, that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what being dead's about, and that's what he is.
Yeah. And then he acknowledges the reality of the resurrection.
Yes.
And that's where we start to see him interacting with Martha in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Martha, what do you really believe about me?
Yeah.
What do you really believe? Like, you say you believe this, and I think this is where I went when I talked about this a few years ago. Like, you say you believe that Lazarus is going to be resurrected, but you're kind of acting like you don't. Is that am I reading too much into this?
I think that's it. I think there's a bit of that in there. I think that Jesus is challenging her thoughts.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Like, you say that you
Yeah.
believe this. The question is, do you? And I think that's something really challenging for us. There are lots of things as Christians that we say we believe,
Mm-hmm.
but do we?
Yeah.
Do we live like they're true?
Exactly. How does that show in our life?
And
Yeah.
I'm not using that 1 Thessalonians text the way I described it as a bludgeon, because there's a way to mourn. We can mourn.
Mm-hmm.
But do we really, like, it's one of the ways that I often talk about it is we hear that we're supposed to love other people, we're supposed to love our neighbors, we're supposed to love our enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jesus says that if we love those who love us, what good is that? Even the tax collectors to do that. And so I think what he's saying is if we only love those who love us, that's really not love.
Right. Right.
Love is loving people who are different than us.
Yeah.
So we say we believe these things, and I think what Jesus is doing here is he's pressing on them. He's pressing on, in a way, he's like pouring salt on this open wound.
In
And
some respects, yeah.
Like, do you believe this?
Mm-hmm.
Because Lazarus is dead, but I'm going to tell you, there's a resurrection coming that is real.
Yeah.
And it's me, and I love that.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the reality.
Yeah.
Is that
yeah.
it's me.
It's through him.
Angry at death. We mourn well when we're angry at death.
When you talked about this part on Sunday, you identified that this anger was Jesus was angry, and it was connected to that verse that anybody can quote. Jesus wept.
Right.
And that weeping seems to be as a result of the anger within him.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
And that's a natural thought, and it's a thought that we all struggle with, but probably try to suppress.
Yeah. I shouldn't be angry.
Yeah.
Because my husband, father, brother, wife was a Christian, so they're in heaven. So I shouldn't be angry.
Yeah.
Shouldn't I be happy? Because, like, why am I sad? Why am I angry? I should be happy because
Right.
now they're in heaven.
Right.
Like, I think these are the kinds of lies.
Mm-hmm. That Satan would want us to believe.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have the right
Yeah.
to be angry because my loved one was a Christian. And I just, like,
Yeah.
it's not true, because that's not what we saw in Jesus in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a way to mourn by being angry at death and by weeping. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay. Like,
Mhm.
I acknowledging that everyone mourns differently. Like yesterday during Shane's celebration of life and memorial, I heard people weeping,
Yeah.
because even in the celebratory moments, we heard people weeping, because that's a normal reaction, because we're
Yeah.
human beings and we're sad.
Yeah.
And we're happy that Shane is with Jesus and Bill is with Jesus,
Mhm.
and those who are walking with the Lord are with Jesus. Like, we're happy about that.
Yep.
But we're also sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't say this earlier, but it really makes me think of that rubber band effect.
Mm.
You said tension a
Okay,
little bit
yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
It really, it's almost like I'm in this rubber band thing where there's this emotion pulling me this way, and then there's the emotion pulling me this way. And it stretches me to the point of, I wonder if I can take it anymore.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you stretch a rubber band way out. And yet, it helps me to grow. A rubber band can only be good if it's stretched.
Yeah.
It does absolutely
Yeah,
no
yeah.
good unless it's stretched.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
and so these emotions that we go through, that even Jesus went through, which is really awesome for me to think about,
Yeah.
that he experienced it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
It's a growing process within us. Mary and Martha had to go through that process. The apostles had to go through that process of being stretched a little bit in order to grow and mature and be able to do what God designed them to do.
Yeah.
And I think that these ways to grieve is part of that stretching.
Yeah. And then lastly, we talked about we mourn well when we acknowledge that Jesus has the last word.
Yeah.
So I almost just said, so after I've gone through the gamut of these emotions, I'm going to finally come to this place, but it's not that simple. Because like I said, there are going to be times there are going to be times probably for the rest of the lives of those who are still here, who did not pass away this past week with all of the people that have passed away. There are going to be times where these first four things are going to come upon them.
Yeah.
Where they're going to feel sad, they're going to feel angry, they're going to want to weep, they're going to acknowledge, like, oh, I can't pick up my phone and call this person anymore.
Yeah. Or I forgot to take him off my list.
Yes. Like, those things are happening. So this is not.
Yeah.
So, like, I want to be really cautious, and like, this is not a linear list. Like, for us, we're used to thinking in a linear way. So this is, and here's what that means. So this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and eventually I'm going to get to this place where I'm going to acknowledge that Jesus has the last word, and I'm going to be fine, and I'm never going to have these thoughts and feelings again, and it's not going to happen.
And somebody's going to come along and grab that rubber band and
Yes,
go, twang.
perfect. That's such a great analogy.
And it hurts.
Yeah, because that's not how, like, that's not life.
Yeah.
So I loved, and I don't have the three words that Willie used, but he talked about something. Yeah, he talked about mourning, something, and then celebrating, and he was in this cycle.
Oh.
So how am I going to get through this? I'm gonna mourn, I'm gonna something, and I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna mourn, I'm gonna something, I'm gonna so like the rest of our lives, as we navigate these places where we have lost loved ones. we're going to be going through this cycle.
Yeah.
And I would say acknowledging that Jesus has the last word, like that's the foundation. So like beneath all of these other thoughts and feelings and emotions we have, what I would submit is beneath every single one of those things there is this hum.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This low level noise.
Yeah.
And that low level noise is acknowledging that Jesus has the last word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there, so that there's a foundation. Grieve, weep, celebrate. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Cody.
Yeah.
Grieve, weep, celebrate.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that celebrate and that acknowledging that Jesus has the last word underlies and undergirds all of those other feelings.
Yeah.
So there's a way that I can mourn, there's a way that I can grieve, there's a way that I can weep, knowing that Jesus has the last word.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm always gonna so we might chip away
Mm-hmm.
at those upper levels
Mm-hmm.
of thoughts and feelings and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually I'm gonna get into the bedrock that is Jesus having the last
Yeah.
word.
Yeah. That weeping is the release part.
Yeah.
It really is. It's the releasing of ourselves and how we feel and the honesty in that.
Right.
And then when we've done that, we can truly celebrate.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And it's stepping out of the way and allowing him to have the last word.
Yeah. And this isn't just about this isn't just about the loss of a loved one.
No. No.
I mean, we have these.
Yeah.
We could talk about these things in lots of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be honest about our thoughts and feelings on how 2020 has gone.
Right.
As a for
Right.
instance, we can acknowledge the reality of 2020.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We can be angry about it. We can weep over it, and that hum, that foundation, that bedrock,
Mm-hmm.
is acknowledging that Jesus has the last word.
Yeah. You could even go to the election.
Yeah.
In 2020.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk
With
about
this,
anything. We
yeah.
could talk about anything in
Yeah.
this way.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where it does sort of become a checklist, sort of become a, how do I get through life?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I think it's so important. And this was the very first series we talked about. We talked about Admiral Stockdale
Mm.
and acknowledging the reality without ever giving up hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
we want to acknowledge reality.
Yeah.
We want to say, and we have, and maybe you're tired. Frankly, I'm tired of saying it. You're probably tired of hearing it. Like, I'm ready for 2020 to be over.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: like, it's not 2020. It's not like if we add up the numbers, we're not going to get some secret revelation code or anything. Like,
Yeah.
it's not about that. Like, there are things that we're sick of, and we can say that and acknowledge it, and also acknowledge that Jesus has the last word.
You and I are both old enough to remember the turn of the century.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and how lots of people believed that things were going to be different in the
Right.
new
Right.
century.
Yep.
And here we are, still going,
And
still experiencing much of the same things that we've experienced before.
Yeah. And I think, like, for people who are thinking, like, with the role we've talked about this over the past several weeks, with the role of a calendar, we somehow think January 1st is going to be better. And like, I don't know how much I want to go into this. I was listening to the radio this morning when I was coming to work, and they were talking about the vaccine,
Oh, yeah.
the corona vaccine,
Yeah.
the COVID vaccine, and they said, like, it's in clinical trials, and we can believe whatever we want to from a political thing. So I want to keep that out of it. So please keep that out of it. Don't post comments.
Yeah.
But they were saying, like, it's not going to be largely available for months.
Mm-hmm.
For months into 2021.
Yeah.
So and then they said, so the things that we've been talking about, physical distancing, masking, washing your hands, like, we're in this.
Yeah.
We're in this for a while. And we can love it, we can hate it, like whatever our thoughts and feelings are, like that's being honest.
Yeah.
And acknowledging that Jesus has the last
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
And if we can, and again, it's not linear, it's not getting to that last. I would say if we can come to that point first.
Mm-hmm. It definitely makes everything else easier
Yeah.
if we come. The sooner we come to that,
Yes.
the better it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sooner we hit that bedrock statement that Jesus has the last word in this, the better off you will be.
Mm-hmm.
And anything in life, it's not just about COVID. It's not
Right.
just about the loss or the death of a loved one. It's
Yeah.
about any hardship or situation and circumstance in the way that we talk about it here. It's any of those things. The sooner we can get to that point of Jesus is the bedrock,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to acknowledge that He has the last word. The better off your life will be.
Yeah.
At least that's been true for me. It's probably been true
Oh,
for you.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
And it's probably been true for a lot of you who are watching this.
And I can look around at people and know who those people are lots of times.
Yeah.
Because of the way they live their lives.
Yeah.
I would say that about Uncle Bill. I think I did say that about
Yeah.
Uncle Bill this morning in
Yeah.
your office. One of those people that you just knew his foundation was firm.
Yeah.
And you could go to him and talk to him
Yep.
and trust what was being said because of the example he had from Christ
Right.
that he followed.
Yeah.
And Christ within him. And so, yeah, Jesus has the last word, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that is very good news.
Yeah.
So our hope and our prayer is that each of you watching would come to the conclusion and acknowledge that Jesus has the last word, and then live your life in trust of that.
That's right.
And not just pay it lip service, kind of what Martha was doing a
Right.
little bit.
Right.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I believe Jesus has the last word. Not just play it lip service, not just give into spiritual platitudes about Jesus having the last word in our lives, but actually living and being impacted and affected by the reality that Jesus has the last word over these things. I promise you, your life will be better.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have a more fulfilled life. This is what we're going to talk about on Sunday. Jesus talks about having life and having it to the
To
fullest.
the fullest, yeah. And that isn't that it's going to be easy.
Right.
But whatever you go through,
Right.
it's going to be better.
Right.
And there's a huge difference there.
Right. So thanks for watching today. We love you guys. We continue to covet your prayers.
Yeah.
As leaders, as pastors and elders and team leaders and all of those things at Westway Christian Church, we want to ask you to continue to pray for the families who've lost loved ones, for the ones who are dealing and struggling with the different hardships that are going on in everyone's life right now.
Yeah.
We're all facing those things. We're all impacted and affected by that. So we want to encourage you to pray for our body, to pray for us as leaders, to pray for one another as the body. I'm thankful that we have this opportunity to connect during the week.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching. We love you guys, and we're praying with you, and we're praying for you, and we'll see you on Sunday, if not before, for some reason. So have a great rest of your week.